All right, for people that were not here before, if you have cell phone, please silence your cell phone. All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Command Master Chief Jordan Rosado. On behalf of Commander Submarine Group 8 and Commander Task Force 69, I'm pleased to welcome you to today's commissioning ceremony for Chief Joe Hulak. I would like to extend a special welcome to Chief Hulak's family and friends who are unable to attend in person. The commissioning ceremony you witnessed today is a reflection of the rich heritage of our Navy tradition. The ceremony is designed to strengthen the respect for dedication to service, which is vital to any military organization. Today's ceremony will commission Chief Hulak to Chief Warrant Officer. This is indeed a significant accomplishment. The competition for appointment was extremely keen, and only the very best of applicants were selected. Chief Hulak, his family, friends, and shipmates can be very proud of his outstanding accomplishment. It is my distinct honor to introduce the presiding officer and guest speaker for today's event, Commodore Ted O'Hara. Commodore O'Hara is a native of Trenton, New Jersey, and a 1994 United States Naval Academy graduate. He served on all classes of submarines and commanded USS Tucson from 2011 to 2014. In May 2019, he took command of Task Force 69 and concurrently served as the Deputy Theater Undersea Warfare Commander in the European and African Theater for Operations. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce Commodore Ted O'Hara.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for coming. Master Chief, thanks. I'd like to also recognize and welcome those watching from afar or watching at a later date, most especially Chief Hulak's wife, Chrissy, and daughters, Aislinn and Caitlin. Chief Hulak would not be able to achieve this opportunity without the support of his family, and I want to personally thank them and then all of the families of CTF 69, Submarine Group 8, for their sacrifices that allow us to do this profession. This is a special day, and like many special days in the Navy, it's the recognition of a transition. We all go through them in our careers, from fourth class midshipman to third class midshipman, from seaman to petty officer, from petty officer to chief, and in this case, from chief to warrant officer. And it is a transition, and it's key to understand and make sure we communicate to everyone here, and most importantly, Chief Hulak, how his responsibilities are going to change in this new role as a warrant officer. But before we have Chief Hulak take the oath and commission, I think it's appropriate to answer one of the timeless questions I think most ensigns have, and maybe some of you in the audience have, and I think a lot of good submariners, because we don't have a lot of warrants, is what exactly is a warrant officer? Right? I mean, I'll tell you, back in my career as an ensign, I remember the first warrant officer I met, he was a prior bosun's mate, he worked for Squadron 8, and all I knew is he scared me. And he scared most people on the Atlanta, and we messed one thing up with an underway, and the warrant talked to the Commodore, and it was like the warrant almost pulled us back in. So warrants have great power, but what are they? Well, I did what most good folks do when I had these questions, and I reached out to everybody's favorite reference last night, and I said, Google, what is a warrant officer? What did I find out? Well, first of all, warrants ranks date back to medieval England. It could be why Warren is always as cheerful as he is, because it dates back so long. But anyway, back as early as 1040, warships furnished by King Edward the Confessor, including crews with permanent officers designated master, boatsmen, carpenters, and cooks. These officers were in charge of sailing and maintenance of the ship, while the captain's lieutenant's sole purpose was to command soldiers carried on board and to lead their ships during combat. Transit about 500-600 years, and suddenly the captain's lieutenant started to do more. some can still argue that they don't do that much right now, but began taking over the executive operation of the ships. Eventually, they were considered naval rather than Army officers, but the distinction was always maintained between the officers holding commissions and holding warrants. Commissioned officers held a commission from the monarch, authorizing them to exercise command of naval vessels and personnel, while warrant officers, on the other hand, held a warrant, derived from the French term, meaning variously a protector, a defense, and an authorization issued by the Admiralty. Unlike commissioned officers whose purpose was to command ships and sailors, warrants were experts. Expert seamen who possessed special skills that were essential to the operation of sailing ships. In recognition of this expertise, these men received warrants to distinguish them from enlisted seamen and to confer lawful authority upon them, while not conveying the responsibility of command that was exercised by commissioned line officers. Now, although United States Navy warrant officers are legally considered commissioned officers as well, their traditional role as expert technical specialists continues to this day. And I want to emphasize this, expert technical specialists. And what do we, as commanding officers and the rest of the line officers, rely on them for? I'll get into that in a second. The first thing I'm saying is there's no doubt in my mind that Chief Hulak demonstrates these qualities of being an expert technical specialist. And he's proven himself worthy of it through his entire career, from his first tour on Bulkley, through his time at Guantanamo Bay, to his tour at NOPF Whidbey Island, and then again when he's selected for Chief Petty Officer on board USS Stout. He's an expert in his field. And most recently, he performed that role first in the Quality Assurance Division at Commander Undersea Surveillance back in Dam Neck, which earned him the right to come here. And as we all know, he was key last year in last year's iteration of the 4th Battle of the Atlantic. So now we know the background of the officer, and I have no doubt Chief Hulak's ready. I like to close with a little perspective on what I think Chief Hulak needs to know and what I rely on warrant officers for as a major commander in the Navy. You know, in addition to being experts in the field, what do I rely on warrants for? Well, it's that ability to tell truth to power. Chief Warrant Officer, yet there's different grades, but they are Chief Warrant Officers. That's it. They are there. They've reached the epitome of technical excellence. And so we rely on them to tell us truth to power, no matter what. And that means when we're getting it wrong, we can rely on them to tell us, you're getting this wrong. You are heading towards hazardous waters. You're not going to get the mission done, Captain. We rely on them to provide that alarm early enough so that we're able to use slight rudder orders to get the command back in the right direction. Or at least rethink what we're doing to make sure that if it's a personnel issue, we're providing the commander's intent to keep the personnel issue from distracting the command. Or whatever it may be, to use that slight rudder orders so that you're not dealing with extremis. Warrants are experts. They don't fall prey to groupthink or become worried about their next promotion, or if what they say makes the captain or the boss happy. No, they tell the captain the truth, as they see it, providing unfettered military advice. Chief Hulak, I know you're up to this challenge and this responsibility, and I want to congratulate you and your family on this accomplishment and for what you have done and what we expect you to do in the future. And without further ado, what I'd like to do is ask you to join me up here so we can recognize you for your service here at CTF 69, Submarine Group 8, and then commission you as a warrant officer.
Thank you, sir. Commodore O'Hara will now present Chief Hulak with his N of 2 award. Chief Hulak, your presence is requested at center stage. You're ready there. Military in attendance, attention to award. The Secretary of the Navy has awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal to Chief Sonar Technician, Surface Warfare, Joel R. Hulak, United States Navy, for meritorious service while serving as Assistant Officer in charge of Commander Undersea Surveillance Detachment, Naples, Italy, from July 2019 to October 2020, demonstrating deep expertise of the undersea surveillance infrastructure. Chief Hulak provided timely reports and invaluable recommendations to the Commodore Task Force 69 and the Commander Naval Forces Europe Theater Undersea Warfare Commander, which were key to multiple successful theater anti-submarine warfare operations. A talented communicator, he served as the central node connecting Undersea Surveillance Command, Task Force 69, and allied nations, improving the flow of information in support of critical decisions. Chief Hulak's distinctive accomplishment, perseverance, and devotion to duty reflect that credit upon him and were in keeping with the highest tradition of the United States Naval Service. Signed, Commodore O'Hara, United States Navy.
Clap.
Commodore O'Hara will now administer the officer's oath to Chief Hulak.
Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Joel Robert Hulak,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same,
to the same,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office
of the office
on which I am about to enter.
which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Chief Warrant Officer Manfredi will now attach the Chief Warrant Officer insignia, and Commodore O'Hara will place the officer's cover. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Warrant Officer Joel Hulak, United States Navy. Staff and guests at ease. Seats. It is a time-honored tradition for newly commissioned officers to pass the silver dollar to the first enlisted sailor who salutes them. While no one knows for sure where this tradition originated, some suggest that it was passed on from British regiments garrisoned in the U.S. during the colonial era. Of course, at the time, it would not have been a dollar as we know it. As the story goes, some of their traditions and customs were passed on to newly formed American units. New officers were assigned an enlisted advisor who showed them the ropes, told them the regimental history, as well as the ins and outs of the military profession. Lieutenants compensated their enlisted advisor with a small sum of money. American second lieutenants in the early 1800s received about $25 a month monthly as a base pay, a rations allowance of about $3, and an additional allowance of $1 for the enlisted advisor. While the advisor pay was eventually discontinued, the responsibility for mentoring the newly commissioned officers continued. This relationship is thought to be the basis for this tradition. By tradition, the silver dollar is the only coin given in exchange for the first salute. While the coin may just be $1 in demonstration, it represents a value far greater. To new officers, it may represent the respect found in one's newly earned rank and position. A twist on the thinking for the silver dollar salute is that the new officer must buy his first salute as he has not yet, by the nature of his deed alone, earned it. Juan Estes Smith, front and center.
Request permission to carry on, sir. Carry on.
Chief Warrant Officer Hulak, the floor is yours.
As some of you may have noticed, my last official act as a chief petty officer was to hold a impromptu sea bag inspection, which obviously some of you failed. Re-inspect will be next week, Thursday, outside my office. Thank you. Yeah. Commodore, officers, chiefs, former shipmates, friends. Man. Thank you for coming. Of course, I need to thank my family, my parents, my sisters, my brother. Hopefully you get into the academy. I'm pointing at you, William. And obviously my wife and my kids for putting up with me being gone for, obviously for my parents 18 years, for, my wife and kids, all the underways, all the duty days, all the, the late nights. Thank you for putting up with it. Someday I'll make it up to you. I have one quick anecdote, and then I'd like to go take some pictures with you guys outside if you don't mind. But about 18 years ago, I went to the recruiting office. I walked in, and I'm sitting there, and I see some sailors, and some of you know Johnny Cash's, and I'm looking at their stripes, and one guy's got one, another guy's got two. There's a guy with 3, and he's sitting in the back. And I see the All Hands Magazine annual printout of, all the rank structure for, all branches of the military and the awards and all the pins and medals. And I'm trying to look at it while I'm talking to him, like, okay, this guy is this thing and that guy in the back, okay, so he's one more. And I'm, of course, 18, I'm still trying to figure it out. And then out comes from the back a guy wearing khakis. So I'm like, he wasn't close enough. I couldn't see the anchors. They're obviously pretty small. So he gets a little bit closer, and I'm trying to look at each branch of the military, and I'm like, all right, well, in the Marines, in the Air Force, you just get another chevron, and rocker. It just keeps stacking up. And I really didn't see that. All the thing I saw was this guy wearing an anchor. But of course, when you're looking at the printout, all you see is the chevrons and the rocker on top. Of course, then a star and 2 stars, right? So I was like, well, it says chief, and I think somebody said chief to him. So, like, I guess he's like a different thing. At the time, I just assumed he joined the Navy, and he was just always like that. He was just there. He just joined, and there he was wearing khakis. So it wasn't until about a week into boot camp that I realized that was a path that I could take. And then it wasn't until about like 2-3 years ago that I realized that this was a path that I could take. I'm extremely taken back right now, and I'm fighting back the tears, but I'm good to go. I can't thank you guys enough. I gotta thank Senior Chief Welch and my relief, Chief Matthias, who I've known for probably like 10 years, as well as Lieutenant Evetts and Warrant Officer Watkins for stopping by. Man, I ain't got nothing else to say. Thanks for coming. Yeah, roll tide.
Thank you, Warrant. Not for like that. I gotta support. And this concludes today's ceremony. On behalf of Warrant Hulak and his family, thank you for attending. Chief Warrant Officer Hulak would like to invite all chief and officers outside by Eddie the Eagle to take a picture. Dismiss.